Listen, I'm really excited about the next half of what we're going to show you through today. It's always inspiring when you hear of some of these global organisations and what we're doing. We're now working with over 50% of the Fortune 500. Companies that range across all industry sectors, be that in the financial services sector with the JP Morgans, Citigroups, HSBCs, Merrills, really the who's who of large insurers, banking and wealth management firms, but also in government sectors. The US Air Force, which is a publicly stated case study as well, how they're transforming what defence looks like in working in this new way and bringing together modern technology platforms like Pivotal Cloud Foundry. But I'm hugely grateful to be able to showcase some of the Australian stories. We've heard from Telstra about their journey, but what we've got coming up this afternoon will span more of the practical side of how we're bringing innovation to the experiences we're creating in Telstra, in things that will impact you as customers of Telstra. And for those who are using the broadband services across Telstra, me being a customer, this is revolutionising the experience as a customer in fault resolution and restoration. So really proud to be able to have the next speakers coming up, and then we'll be following that on with Greg Dickerson talking about what has become pretty much a dinner time conversation and an obsession in Australia with RP Data, who look after close to 90 to 95% of valuations data around property in Australia. And then we'll finish up with what this means in government, where transformation of product-centric and customer-centric approach can transform digital experiences for citizens. But without further, let me introduce our next speakers to the stage, who are going to talk about how Telstra leveraged Pivotal's way of working to really focus on customers and drive business results. So please join me in welcoming Lawrence Crowther, our Labs Director for Pivotal, and also Tony Sutherland, who's the General Manager of Digital at Telstra. Please join me in welcoming them.
Thank you, and really appreciate everyone spending at least half their day here. So I'm the guy in the t-shirt, so I'm obviously the delivery guy. But I wanted to introduce myself. As Gavin said, I look after the Labs business here. I've got about almost 2 decades in the software development space. Haven't got grey hair yet, but it's probably coming. I'm here with my friend and client, Tony Sutherland, who's going to talk at the back half of this presentation. What we wanted to do today is talk about our partnership in the last 12 to 18 months, where we've taken Tony's team, who represents the insurance group in Telstra, which is the group that has all the contact centres and has the self-care channels, so that customers can either ring the contact centre and raise an issue with their broadband service or fixed line, etc., or try and solve it themselves on the internet. Just a little story about myself. So in preparation for this role, I had moved my whole family to San Francisco back in 2015, and was on a project. We worked on a pretty cool app for Mercedes-Benz, a connected car app. And although I've been in the software industry for almost 20 years, I hadn't really had hands-on keyboard for probably the last 4 or 5 years. But it was good to get back and pair with the engineers at Pivotal. I was pairing with some 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, and I was just blown away how fast they were. They would type a couple of characters and boom, there would be half a page of code. And I was like, what just happened? So it was interesting for me, starting off my career as a software developer, deep in technology, moving to more of the architecture space. I was responsible for news.com.au, one of Australia's largest websites. And then, into leadership management roles, but then coming back onto the tools, it was actually really refreshing to see how much I had matured in my kind of sabbatical, if you will. So, what we want to do here is really kind of double click on some of the macro vision that has been laid out here today with our partnership with Telstra. We're going to talk about 2 specific use cases, or projects, engagements that we've done with Tony's team. But just first to kind of reiterate, how is Pivotal actually helping Telstra? So, come to a couple of forms. One is helping them really understand what it's meant to do customer-driven product development. So really having that customer lens and listening to customer pain points and feedback and incorporating that into the products they build to ultimately deliver great user experiences, right? And get ingrained into their teams this concept of co-location and balanced teams. So no more of the designers go away and design the solution and throw it over the fence to engineering, but do that collaboratively together throughout the whole process to actually make sure that everyone is on the same page and actually delivering a combined outcome. And then also on the kind of platform side, so it's all good and well to do lean agile and different ways of working to ship better software faster, but you need a different type of platform to actually help accelerate that. So this is where Pivotal Cloud Foundry comes in. As we heard, it's been in use for about a year in Telstra, and this is one of the key areas where we were able to deliver software within a matter of weeks into the hands of users and iterate on that software, collect feedback, and then do it all again. It's very difficult to do on traditional IT infrastructure. And then, so with that, adopting this kind of DevOps culture and the continuous delivery mindset, and giving actually ownership to the teams to manage the full end-to-end process from writing code on a developer desktop to actually shipping that code into production without having to kind of raise a ticket and throw the code over the wall at ops. They were actually part of the team. So this is a completely different mind shift for Telstra, and we're adopting this in multiple teams across the business. So this will ultimately drive customer advocacy through this better customer engagement. And everyone at Telstra is focused on the NPS, or the Net Promoter Score, to actually listen to customers and deliver amazing user experiences. Really help drive value from their existing assets, from the core, from the networks, from the NBN assets that they have. And then finally, look for different new business models and revenues to actually go after and innovate on to truly be a technology business. So with that, let's kind of double click on some of the engagements we looked at. So one of the engagements was called Digital Self-Care, which is really the online channel for customers of Telstra to go and help self-diagnose their own broadband issues, okay? So what we wanted to do is help Telstra customers stay connected and resolve issues faster by themselves, and then the key word there is themselves. We want to empower Telstra customers to resolve those own issues and have great user experiences. Ultimately, so they don't actually call the call centre because that's very expensive for Telstra, but ultimately to provide a better user experience. So as we look at the path to MVP, as we went through the engagement, we did something called a discovery and framing as part of the Pivotal Labs engagement, where we focused on the problem, not necessarily the solution or technology. What is that business pain point first? So, and that pain point was, out of the 13 million issues raised or calls raised from Telstra customers, only 1 million of those customers actually tried to do anything online. So we tried to understand the behaviour of customers, why they were actually calling the call centre straight away. Now, it might have something to do with the Telstra's phone number being on the modem in their house, and we discovered that through this process. But what we discovered is that the current tool was ineffective, didn't actually serve the needs, and in some cases, they weren't even aware that Telstra had these kind of digital assets to help them. And so what we did as part of the engagement is help the team focus on one vertical slice or thin area of the overall solution, and one persona. So in this case, a 40-year-old professional, time-poor, tech-savvy, who was an ADSL customer, so we focused on that one slide, who had some recent pain around engaging with Telstra on a particular broadband issue they had. And so what we landed on was, and there's multiple opportunities that we found throughout the whole engagement. Some of it was quite easy, just SEO related, for example, and that was an easy win. But the thing we landed on, where we did the project here, is rebuilding the current platform from scratch, essentially, and have a more software-driven approach to this, rather than the old system, which was a COTS-based platform where actually developers would build user interfaces in a tool and publish that, and users found that through our research that the interface was very cumbersome and ineffective. So we decided to rebuild that from scratch and iterate on the first couple of use cases around ADSL, and then kind of go from there. So we built a foundation layer, we built a basic workflow engine on top of that to allow Telstra to continue to iterate and add subsequent workflows down the track, such as for NBN and cable customers. So there was a couple of key learnings that we had from the engagement. So we emphasised the importance of focusing on a single thing. That was very different for the Telstra teams. And we taught them how to kind of be a unit, be a balanced team, as we call it, representing product managers, designers, engineers, and in some cases the architects and security people as well, so that we could easily deploy stuff to production. And it's interesting on this one where the Telstra product manager was kind of an SME in Tony's team who hadn't really worked in the agile ways of working before, but had deep knowledge, about 15 years in Telstra in the contact center space, but hadn't really worked in a delivery team before. So we enabled him, he paired with our product manager Venki, to actually become an agile practitioner, if you will, back into Telstra. So we took someone who's not familiar with building software in this kind of way, but using their domain knowledge, infused the team to really have empathy for Telstra customers, which was an awesome outcome. And that's really what we focus on at Pivotal Labs, is really enabling teams, not necessarily the software outcome, you kind of get that for free anyway, but really helping them on this journey and be enabled and deliver value to customers always. So the platform was obviously critical to this, and the self-care project was the first app deployed on PCF. There was a lot of learnings there around how we engage with architecture, network and security, and we kind of defined on the process that they use now for subsequent engagements and projects on the platform. And as I mentioned, we kind of made sure that architecture and security were first and foremost in how we were planning to get this MVP live, and they were part of the team and there with us defining what it looks like to do the deployment. So I highly recommend that engage your architecture teams and security teams early, so you don't have surprises down the end. But I think most of all, we had a lot of fun, right? What I wanted to focus on now is, after that initial MVP, we decided to help Telstra scale up the team, both onshore and offshore. This is quite interesting, because the traditional pivotal model is to insource, right? If you look at what we do, we help enable teams to get better at doing software, and the model is we have an exit strategy. After say 3 or 4 months, they go back to their own organisation and infuse the culture over there, kind of train the trainer, if you will. But Telstra being a very special customer, we wanted to help them scale up quickly because Tony had some obviously business deadlines that he had to meet. So we distributed the teams both in Australia and Pune and Bangalore. But the key thing there was we wanted to make sure that the team took all the learnings with them around user-centered design, validating the features early and often, and then engineering practices as well. We use a flavour of Agile called XP, Extreme Programming, the key tenets being pairing, which you're more than welcome to have a look later. You can see the pivots pairing together, and test-driven development, TDD. Who's heard of XP? Wow, excellent. So this is what it looked like. We actually had 5 teams because a couple of the product managers, one lived in Perth, one lived in Townsville, but 3 pods, as we call them, which had the developers. As you can see, the distribution there. And we figured it out as we went. We didn't know how it was going to work in terms of the remote collaboration, but it worked. And this is what it kind of looked like as we went on the journey and scaled up. So we started with a very small team. So 2 pivot engineers, 2 Telstra engineers, and a partner, actually their offshore delivery partner, flew to Sydney to pair with us. So we enabled not only Telstra, but their partners. So after a couple of months, we scaled that up across the 3 locations. Sydney, down here in 400 George, there's a pod, in Bangalore and Pune. And we added more pivots to the team, more Telstra and more of the partner. But like I said, we have an exit strategy. So it was our turn to roll off at that point because we want to make sure that this team can be sustainable ongoing. We had pivots go to India to help embed the culture over there, but they came back, and that's where Telstra then added more and partner added more, and ultimately they want to get something like this where there's kind of a 3-to-1 ratio between Telstra and the partner. But I'll stop there. I'll let Tony come up and speak. In his business, we did 2 engagements. One was the self-care, which I just talked about, and the other was the service status page. Gavin was mentioning earlier where the team won the award, the CEO award. So I'll let Tony come up and talk about that. Thank you.
Jeepers, I think I've counted 3 CEOs, a CIO, and a couple of global heads so far this morning.
It's a full house.
And now you've got me. And off the back of that, I was sort of wondering what I'm going to do to make it a worthwhile use of all of your time. And I did contemplate doing the Alan DeGeneres dance down the aisle. Just to,
I think you should still do it.
bit of pure entertainment value. But no, I think my lens on the process is representing the customer. And speaking of all those C-level roles, my title is General Manager of Digital, but I quite often in this model feel like the Chief Product Officer or the Chief Customer Officer. And those diagrams that we saw up earlier in theory are around bringing the customers and the product team and the operational teams closer together. That really is my world now, and learning sort of new skills. And it's also very much a lesson in humility because what you think is right and what your customers think is right are not always the same thing, and you definitely need to be very willing to take that feedback on and do something differently. So on with the customer story. So I guess putting myself in the customer shoes, I remember, as a boy, if the lights went out at home, my dad would say, "Hey, Tone, can you run out to the curb and just look up and down the street and see, is it just us or is it everyone?" And, even though if it was everyone, it was kind of a bigger problem to solve, in many ways, you're kind of relieved because there's not something going on in your home. You don't have to go get an electrician or whatever, right? Like it's a broader outage, so the power company's going to take care of it. We don't have to do anything in our house. And it's kind of the same thing when there's an outage with your internet or your home phone or your pay TV or any of those kind of things at Telstra. The first question you have is it just me? Do I have to get someone to come and fix some stuff? Do I have to do a bunch of things? Or is it an outage and are Telstra going to take care of it for me? But the problem is you can't see it. You can't walk out to the curb and kind of go, is it just me or is it everyone? So we need somewhere that customers can do that quickly and effectively, and it really does need to be effective because there are literally hundreds of things that we can have you do if the issue is not in our network and it's in your home. It could be the next door neighbour's garage door remote is interfering with your Wi-Fi, and we can have you playing around with settings in your Wi-Fi, in your modem to change channels, or we can have you pulling out furniture and plugging things in and out. So we really don't want to have customers going through all of that in-home stuff if it's simply an outage and we can get it up and running. So it really needs to be effective for them and stop them needing to call. So when the project first came about, everyone sort of said to me, look, Tone, this one's pretty easy. We've already got an outages page. It's just a little bit too broad. It's written at the postcode level, so it might be telling you about an outage at the end of your street rather than at your house or in the next street. So we just have to fix that. It's a little bit old on the old brand, and it's a little bit built from the desktop era, not for mobile. So that's all we have to fix. Like, let's not worry about all of that kind of test-driven development, customer iterations. Let's just knock this one out really quickly. And so a bit of a moment of truth for me, having gone through all the process with Telstra and been rabbiting on to anyone who would listen about we must only do it this way. Am I going to sort of cave in at this moment, or am I going to insist on continuing? And so I said, no, let's do it right. It is just, yep, okay, we can do it fast, or we can do it right. So on day one, we mobilised the team. On day two, we put what we thought the design should be into wireframes. And on day three, we got customers in and proudly slid the device across the table and said, what do you think? Pretty good, right? And the customers went, yeah, it's nicer than your old one, but we're still ringing you. And everyone's pretty devastated about that, right? Because what it really means is our customers are going to continue going through those sort of 100 or so things that they might be able to do if it's not an outage. So a bit of a moment, and everyone's kind of a bit deflated. But my point was, guys, this is good. And we heard a little bit of commentary earlier around the perception of failing fast versus learning and pivoting fast. But there's some reality in it too, because as I said to my team and my stakeholders, if we were doing this in a more traditional way, that a more traditional corporate do it, you might spend a couple of months funding that project, a couple of months doing requirements, a couple of months writing a solution, 6 months building it, and it would be a year after we started that we'd be at this place now where we knew the customers were still going to ring us. Here we are on day three, and we know that already. And we can already learn, and we can already start iterating. So what was it that the customers said to us? They said to us, digital is not the same as calling. When we call, it's specific and timely and up to the minute, and everyone knows exactly what's going on. When we look digitally, it's more generic and bulletin board. Now, that was actually 100% incorrect, but because our customers said it, it had to be 100% correct, right? So what was on that page that we designed was exactly the same information as we make available to our contact centre staff. And if they called, they would have got the same thing. But we needed to do more than that in order to make this page effective. So we started asking customers, what is it that you really need then? So it's not timely and specific. So we started iterating, and within a couple of weeks, we had a design that customers loved, and a few weeks later it was live. And the kind of things that we did were, you can see that there's this was updated a couple of minutes ago on the page. You can see there's a bit more detail around the cause of disruption. So customers told us that if we told them we knew exactly what had caused the issue, it would be confidence building that they could trust that data more. Customers also told us if we showed them the steps in the resolution process and where we're up to in that process, that would also be confidence building, that they would know we really had a handle on it, and that this would become something that they could trust. So we iterated the design. Within a couple of weeks we had the design right, and we could get on with the job of delivering it. Only weeks later it was delivered, and we're really pretty confident now. We were still doing that in an early days model on the PCF platform. We think once we get through our security ops processes and that platform's kind of live and ready to go for full-on iterative processes, we could do these things in days or just a couple of weeks rather than a few weeks. And soon after that, we went to the next iteration, which was for mobiles. And again, by engaging customers, we realised that outages are a different thing on your mobile device than they are at your home, because it's not so much, is there an outage for my mobile service at my house? It's more, is there an outage for my mobile service where I am right now? And if we could give them a map view with the polygons on it, as you can see on the screen there, it could be that if you really urgently need to get hold of data, you might only be 20 metres away from where you'll be able to get service again. So this was kind of useful to customers to show them. So that's kind of our journey in a nutshell. What was the role that Pivotal held? They taught, as Lawrence described, our business experts how to be digital product managers. They taught them how to do lean agile. They taught them how to run backlogs, room backlogs, prioritise. They taught them design thinking, user interviews, synthesising that customer research. They taught them and equipped us physically in the DevOps world. When you're running these very small lean agile teams, you might just have one product manager, one product designer and 4 or 6 software engineers. That's not a lot of scale when it comes to DevOps. So what do you do when things go bump in the night at 2 a.m? You've only got 6 people. You sort of have to say to 1/6 of your team, well, it's your job to be on at 2 o'clock in the morning this week. So how does that work? And how it works is because you're on cloud-based infrastructure, if things go bump in the night from an infrastructure perspective, Amazon are going to take care of it. And if things go bump in the night from your application perspective, PCF, the platform, is going to take care of it. And so we now roster them on in these small teams, people to sort of have like what we call the backbone. They take it home with them at night. And I was a little concerned about that at the beginning. How do you feel? Like if your friends are inviting you around for a drink, do you feel like you can go participate in that event, or will you be worried the phone's going to ring? And they go home, that phone's never going to ring. It's all automated. Thank you, Pivotal.
Thank you.